Dă dreptul să fim împreună. Gata, mai să înțelegi. Împreună. Împreună. Ce vrei să faci? Ce asta? Nu legați. Te rog? Nu legați. Noi suntem aici așa, zic, cine?
In December 1989, the world witnessed one of the most shocking and dramatic downfalls of a dictator. For nearly a quarter of a century, Nicolae Ceaușescu ruled Romania with an iron grip. He built a cult of personality that rivaled that of Stalin, plastering his image across the nation, enforcing loyalty through fear, and elevating himself and his wife Elena as if they were royalty. Behind the propaganda, however, the country was crumbling. Ceaușescu's obsession with paying off Romania's foreign debt led to brutal austerity measures. Food was rationed, electricity was cut, and people lived in poverty while the dictator lived in unimaginable luxury. Romania became one of the bleakest and most repressive states in Eastern Europe. The cracks in Ceaușescu's power finally began to show in December 1989, in the city of Timișoara. There, a protest began after authorities attempted to evict a dissident pastor. The demonstration quickly grew into a larger uprising against the regime. Ceaușescu, accustomed to absolute obedience, responded as he always had, with violence. The army and the secret police, known as the Securitate, opened fire on civilians. But instead of quelling the unrest, the killings ignited a nationwide rebellion. People were no longer afraid, and the dictatorship that had lasted for decades began to unravel in just a matter of days. On December 21st, Ceaușescu attempted to reassert control. He called a mass rally in the capital, Bucharest, and stood before thousands, delivering what he thought would be a speech of strength and reassurance. But something unprecedented happened. For the first time, the crowd turned on him. Live on national television, people booed and shouted him down. The carefully manufactured image of Ceaușescu as a beloved leader collapsed in an instant. He looked stunned and confused, unable to comprehend that his people no longer feared him. The live broadcast was cut, but the damage was done. His legitimacy was shattered in front of the entire nation. The very next day, protests erupted across Bucharest. The military, sensing the tide had turned, began to side with the people. Ceaușescu and his wife attempted to flee the city by helicopter, but their escape was short-lived. They were captured by the army and taken into custody. The man who once controlled every detail of Romanian life was now a prisoner of his own people. On December 25th, just days after his failed speech, Ceaușescu and Elena were brought before a hastily assembled military tribunal. The trial was brief, lasting just about an hour. They were charged with genocide, corruption, and undermining the state. Ceaușescu refused to recognize the court, calling it illegal and a coup. Elena, defiant to the end, shouted insults at the judges. But their words no longer held power. The verdict was inevitable. Both were sentenced to death. Immediately after the verdict, soldiers led the couple outside into a courtyard. There was no delay, no appeals, no chance for mercy. They were lined up against a wall as television cameras rolled. Nicolae and Elena, once the most powerful figures in Romania, were executed by a firing squad. The shots rang out, and within seconds, their reign was over. The images of their execution were broadcast across Romania the same day. For millions of people, it was the first undeniable proof that the dictatorship had truly fallen. The fall of the Ceaușescus was unlike anything seen in the rest of Eastern Europe during 1989. Other communist leaders stepped down or were pushed out, but only in Romania did the revolution end in such sudden and violent fashion. For some, it was a moment of justice, a reckoning for decades of suffering. For others, it was a troubling spectacle. A rushed and chaotic show trial meant more to silence Ceaușescu than to deliver true justice. What is certain is that December 1989 marked the end of an era. The Ceaușescu's deaths closed the book on one of the harshest dictatorships in modern Europe and opened the door to a new Romania. The transition would not be easy, and the country would face years of turmoil and change. But for ordinary Romanians, the sight of Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu executed on television was the ultimate symbol that their fear had ended. The dictator was gone, and the people had reclaimed their country. This is Takz history.